Don't fall down, don't fall down, don't fall down. Good morning. My name is Kevin England. I use the pronouns he, him, and his, and I am so excited to have you here. I do feel like I need to give a quick shout out. Thanks to Oprah for being my opening act today. That was very kind. We saved the best for last. It's the last day of the conference. How's everything been? You have a good conference? All right. Well, I am so glad you're here. I can't wait to welcome you for this session. We are going to spend a fun-filled hour. Those of you who are here early, you may have heard me say, I tend to be a very interactive speaker. I think of myself more as a facilitator, so I'm going to be asking for your help a lot during our session today, so get those arms stretched and ready to go. Let me tell you a little bit about my background. I am the founder and the CEO of Infinito Associates, which sounds very impressive until you realize I am the only associate. It's just me. But, you know, I'm building. We're building, right? We're in a growth mentality. I come to you from a background in the corporate human resources space. I spent many years working for one of the big global banks that you've all heard of, in a lot of different roles that were HR-ish. Not necessarily in HR, but in line of business roles that were doing work that should have been in HR, as we all know now. But that really shaped the course of my career, and I went and earned a PhD in human capital management, which I call HR with dollar signs. How do we quantify the value of all the HR stuff that we do? Today, though, I work as a career coach, so I help individuals like university students and people who are newer to their career, and even some career shifters map out the course of what they want to do when they grow up. And I work with organizations that do a lot of training sessions like this. And so I primarily focus on talent processes, like the talent life cycle and all the ways that we might be able to treat our employees well in organizations. I also do a lot of work with employee engagement. How do we help people feel satisfied, motivated, inspired, committed in organizations? And I have a big focus on inclusive workplace cultures. How do we make sure that everybody can come to work and feel empowered to bring their best self to work and do their very best work? So when I talk to people about what I do, especially if they don't speak fluent HR, I give them one of two versions. Sometimes I say, I focus on helping individuals do their best work, teams and managers work well together, and organizations to be great places where everybody can thrive. Or I say, I teach grown adults how to behave nicely in the workplace. There's a third version is, I call it How to Not Be a Jerk 101. And so it's a little bit of what we're going to be talking about today. Specifically, by the end of our session today, we are going to be able to think about microaggressions and microinclusions, how those two things are related, why they matter, and what to do about them. We'll practice some small daily things that we can do to try to help make our workplaces better and have better interactions with our colleagues and coworkers. And I'm going to give you the opportunity to start making an action plan. As my colleague mentioned, we do have some handouts that are available in the SHRM Events app. You can download this entire presentation, so you don't need to take pictures of the slides if you don't want to, but there's also a tool that we're going to reference later on that we'll walk through so you can start thinking about your micro-inclusion action plan. Does that sound good? All right, I'm loving the energy. Thank you very much. Let's talk about why this matters. So I told you my background is in human capital management. I like to put numbers on things. I'm going to start with a couple of numbers. First of all, 223 million. That is how many instances of incivility happen every day in workplaces across the U.S. Now, what does that mean? That leads to some pretty big impacts. We see that for every one of those instances of incivility, there's on average 36 minutes of downtime, of lost productivity, because it sort of throws people off. That leads to over $2 billion with a B dollars of loss to organizations every single workday. So that's a pretty big number for us to think about. Unfortunately, we can go beyond that dollar sign and think about the impact to individuals. We hear from people that 66% of the time when they experience some sort of incivility in the workplace, they say, my manager could have done something about this, could have been helpful, and did not. So that's why I spend a lot of time talking about how do we equip managers, supervisors, leaders, and HR professionals to step in and help make things better. 26% of employees surveyed said that when they experience these sort of incivilities, it makes them question, do they even want to stay here? So this is a big risk for retention in our organizations. The good news is that there is the opportunity to make this better. Research from Catalyst tells us that when we see supervisors, managers, and leaders behaving inclusively, it makes a huge difference in employee satisfaction, employee engagement, innovation, all the things that our business leaders care about most. I do want to give a quick shout out. A lot of the pieces of research that I reference come directly from SHRM materials. There's a whole Civility at Work toolkit. There's a lot of research available. I'm happy to point you in that direction after our session today if you want to dig in for some more. But with that in mind, thinking about why this matters, let's talk about how we can conceptualize this and do something about it. First, I want you to consider the very real difference between intent and impact. Let me ask, give me a show of hands, have you ever experienced that I didn't mean it that way in the workplace? Oh, look at all the hands. Yes. Super common thing we hear from folks. I wasn't trying to be offensive. They took it wrong. It's not my fault. I'm going to argue that intent is a good starting point. I like that most employees don't wake up and say, let's see who I can offend today. Show of hands if you are that person. No, don't raise your hand. I'm just kidding. But I think it's important for us to consider that even if your intent is good, you can still cause harm in the workplace, and these harms show up and they matter. People remember them. We'll talk about that. So that impact is where we really have to focus. Yes, let's have good intent, but let's also see how we can translate that positive intent into impact. There's a couple ways that this shows up for us. Have you heard of the phrase microaggressions? I see heads nodding. Yeah, we've spent a lot of time talking about microaggressions, and rightfully so. Who's feeling bold and brave and vulnerable and wants to give me a definition? What does it mean to be a microaggression? Shout, give me a raised hand and I'll call on you. I told you we were going to do this. Who can volunteer to help? Over in the middle here. Yes, thank you.
Well, I was, but then I saw the mic come.
You threw him off, yeah.
A subtle act of exclusion that ultimately results in somebody feeling inferior.
A subtle act of exclusion that results in somebody feeling inferior. You've read my slides. No, see, this is true. We've been talking about these things for a while. I appreciate that contribution. We can think of microaggressions as small, subtle acts of incivility or disrespect. They're the little things that we experience in the workplace every day. It's important to note, though, that usually when we talk about microaggressions, we're not saying somebody was rude, somebody was offensive. Often it's thoughtless. They didn't intend to do this, but something in the way they approached us, the word choice that they used, the tone of voice, their facial expressions, it came across in a way that maybe they didn't intend. So that intent versus impact. It's also worth noting that sometimes, while it may not be intentional, we see that people might find they are more likely to give microaggressions in the workplace because they just didn't know any better. Maybe sometimes they have unconscious bias whispering in the back of their ears saying, you know, this is what people like this are like. We make assumptions. That's a whole other hour we'll have to talk about later. So unconscious bias or just not knowing any better. These are reasons that we see these little things happen. And unfortunately, especially if my intent is good, if I didn't mean anything by it, when I see someone get upset about the thing that I have said or done, often I'm perplexed. Why are you making such a big deal about this? It's your fault that you're upset, because this is just a tiny little thing. What's wrong with that argument? The problem is these tiny little things happen again and again and again, and that pattern builds. Now, every single new instance reminds you of all the times that this happened before, and you're thinking this all over again. It's like death of a thousand cuts. I grew up not far from here in Cocoa Beach, and so I speak fluent beach. And I say it's a bit like if you've ever had one grain of sand in your shoe, you don't notice, it doesn't matter. But when you come home from a full day at the beach and your shoe is full of sand, all you can think about is sand, sand, sand. Microaggressions are like that. They build up, and it's that big pattern that becomes a really big deal indeed. I think about, I'm going to give you an example from my own personal life. When I talk about issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I like to be vulnerable and call myself out and say, here's how I've made mistakes in the past. An example that I always love to share because I like to make fun of myself is I was in a meeting with some colleagues once, and one of my colleagues, the only woman on the team, was very excited to share some information. You may not have gotten this about me, but I like to talk. And so I was very excited to contribute to the conversation. So I jumped in and added my 2 cents. And I thought we had a great dialogue. After the meeting, I walked out feeling really good about the experience. She took me aside and she said, I need to talk to you about what just happened in there. I saw the look on her face. I know something serious happened. Someone has hurt my friend, and I'm going to ride in on a white horse and save her. It turns out I was the one that had done this. We went into the room, we closed the door, and she said, I don't appreciate what you did to me in there. And I thought, what did I do? I thought we were here to gossip about somebody else. This is a whole different conversation. I am not ready for this. She said, I was speaking and you kept interrupting me. I was the only one in the room you did it to. In a room full of men, when I had something to say, suddenly you needed to contribute. Now look, this is a close personal friend of mine. She was at my wedding. I would never intentionally disrespect her. And I was taken aback at first. I said, why are you making such a, I didn't say this. I thought, why are you making such a big deal out of this? What I've learned is I just reminded her of all the other times that same encounter has happened again and again and again. That's microaggressions building up. But let me ask, who can give me an example of some other microaggression? You can't use interrupting. I stole that one. I'm going to ask for some volunteers. Raise your hand for me. Who can give me an example of a microaggression that you have seen, that you have experienced? Bonus points if you've done it. I see over here, yeah.
A microaggression I've experienced is I am the subject matter expert, and me and my colleague go into a place who is a male. Everyone will direct all the questions to him when I'm actually the SME in the room.
Yeah, super common, super common. I'm sorry that happened to you, but I think I see some heads nodding. People can relate. Who else has an example? Over here. This is like therapy right now. I'm so sorry.
Similar to that, also when you're in a room and you've given an idea, and later on somebody refers to that idea, but attributes it to the 6-foot-tall white guy in the room.
Yep.
No offense to all the 6 foot.
Listen, we love our 6-foot-tall white guys in the room. Thank you for being here. Absolutely, yeah. In the front, up here. Oh, over there. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes,
No,
please.
you're good. I think when there's a group of people and they always say hello to someone and they always seem to ignore you, or they go talk to a different group, but they never come to talk to you in the mornings, that is maybe not micro, but kind of micro.
Sometimes we blur from micro to just full-on aggression, right? While we're taking the mic, I'll give you an example. I had a senior business leader once take me aside and say, I need to ask for your advice on something. I said, sure. We sat down, and he said, I need your help. I have a problem. I said, tell me what's going on. He said, I have a problem with my lesbian. I said, we have two problems. We'll circle back to what's on my mind right now, but go ahead and tell me. And he said, every morning I get my team together and I say, good morning, how was your weekend? What did you and your husband do? Hi, how about you and your wife? Did your kids have the soccer game? And then I get to the woman on my team who's in a relationship with another woman, and I don't know what word to use. I don't want to be offensive. I freeze. I say, hi. And then I move on to the next person. He said, I've been doing this day after day after day. I feel like an idiot. Please help me get out of this hole I'm digging for myself. Not for nothing, my advice was, have you said everything you just said to me to her privately and stated your positive intent and asked for help? Maybe that would be a good starting point. Yeah, I saw a hand over here.
Yes. For me, microaggression is when you come to work and you say, hi, good morning, by the time you're to answer, the person walking away.
Right.
And I'm saying, if you're going to say, hi, good morning, how are you? And I'm responding to how I am doing, and you walk away, what's the point of telling me, hi, good morning, how are you?
Right.
Just say hi and keep it moving.
Yes.
So as the people and culture officer, I often have to remind people, when you say good morning, how are you, it's not good morning, how are you as a greeting. It's stop to hear a response. You ask the question.
Yeah. I'm seeing heads nodding in the audience. I think, you have that experience. I'm great. All right, it's fine. Yeah, absolutely. We have one more. Go ahead, please. Thank you. It's coming in. Mike's coming in.
You actually had two.
Oh, two more. Okay. This is a great problem to have. Yeah.
We had a manager who sent out an email with a bunch of information about an event coming up, and one of their team members later in that day hadn't seen the email yet, and then in front of coworkers had asked the manager a question about the event, and the manager in a very attitude type tone said, like, well, didn't you read my email? Everything was in there. Like, what, did you miss something? All the information, I don't know what you don't understand, and it brought the employee to tears because she felt so demeaned, but it was just like a small act of this disrespect.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe that person was having a rough day. Maybe they weren't intending, but that's rough. We had one more, I think, right?
Over here.
Oh, we've got several more. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, and one that I have is when you ever have an idea and you want to share it with somebody, and they say, that's a great idea, but, and then they start going on reasons why it wouldn't work, and they don't really hear you out or listen. So,
That's awful. I'm sorry that that happened to you, experienced it. Speaking of not hearing out and listening, I know we have several more hands. We could spend all day venting and sharing. I'm so sorry. I'm going to move us forward. But what I want to ask you to think about is when these things happen, what do we do? How do we respond? How do we recover? How do we make things better? I'm going to share with you a couple of things that come from SHRM's Civility toolkit that they built in partnership with the organization, what's his name? Inclusive is the name of the organization that partnered. Anybody here done any of the workshops with Inclusive in the last year or so? I see some heads nodding. There's great content there, so please take a look. But there's a couple different approaches I want to give you to think about. One of them is calling in. When we say calling in, I'm not calling out. I'm not putting you on blast. I'm not coming for you. What I'm doing is I'm saying, let's go talk privately because I want to share what happened. Sort of like when I gave you the example of my colleague who wanted to talk to me privately. She didn't make a scene in front of everybody, but she wanted to have that conversation. When would you want to do that? Maybe when it's really important that you prioritize the relationship, when you don't want to make a bad situation worse. So calling in could sound something like, I'm sure you didn't mean it this way, but let me tell you how that sounded to me. Or let me tell you how that landed with me. I never want to script you, but these are, figure out how you can say something like this that sounds like you. Sometimes if I'm being extra cheesy, I might say, listen, I know you. I know you're a good person. You would never want to hurt someone's feelings. I just want to make sure nobody else gets the wrong idea. It's not me, it's them, right? Or I can really lay it on thick and say, I just want to make sure everyone sees the version of you that I know. It's so cheesy. But yeah, so find your own language that sounds like you and use that to try to help make sure they are able to hear you. The unfortunate thing is sometimes when we talk about issues related to diversity and equity and inclusion, people's walls go up immediately because if you say to somebody, what you said hurt me, it wasn't inclusive. They think, you just called me sexist, you just called me racist, you just said I'm a bad person. Now their only focus is, how can I defend myself? No, I didn't say any of that. So sometimes we have to sort of ease in that feedback to make sure they're able to hear us and understand what we're saying and take it constructively, because usually we mean it constructively, right? Okay, sometimes we mean it constructively. Good. So that's calling in. Another tool for you to think about is calling on. And this is a little bit more forward. Sometimes we might redirect in the moment. I think it's important to say, I'm still not coming for you. I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm not saying, how dare you. But I might try to redirect a little bit softly in front of people in the room. So in the moment, I might say something like, I'm not sure I understood what you meant by that. Can you phrase that differently? I just want to make sure I get it. I always try to make it about me, not understanding, not about how very dare you. But some version of that, giving them the opportunity to say more. Sometimes I might pivot away from what was just said, but make it clear that I'm trying to move us on. It's a subtle cue that, that probably didn't land exactly right, but let's move past this in the moment. So I might say something like, does anyone else have something they want to share? I promise if I do that in this room, I'm not trying to move on away from you. But these are things that we can do. We can call in, we can call on. It's ways to sort of diffuse the situation, give some feedback, but not let it go. One of the biggest root causes, I think, of microaggressions is that we don't say something because it feels like it shouldn't be a big deal and I don't want to make it a big deal, so I ignore it until it becomes a big deal for me, and then I blow up. And so I'm going to argue these little techniques can help us address it in the moment and course correct while it's still gentle. But all that's about how we address microaggressions. I think we've all talked a lot about microaggressions in our work. Instead, I want you to consider microinclusions. We don't talk about this much, but these, very much like microaggressions, are small, subtle acts. But in this case, they're small...
May I have your attention, please? Disregard any current audio or visual alarms. There is no emergency at this time. Corrective action is being taken to clear the alarms as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Su atención, por favor. No presten atención a ninguna alarma audible o visible. En estos momentos no hay ninguna emergencia. Acciones correctivas están siendo implementadas para apagar las alarmas lo más pronto posible. Gracias.
If that had happened 4 minutes sooner, I could have said, this is a microaggression. All right. So a microinclusion, it's the counterweight to a microaggression, small, subtle acts that can help people feel welcomed and valued and respected and heard. The thing about microinclusions is, for many of us, that doesn't come naturally. And not because we're bad people, but because we're distracted, we're moving fast, and so it requires some conscious effort to build that habit. Sometimes when I'm dealing with a microaggression in my personal life, not my professional life, with family or friends, I'll get a little snarky and say, what's the nice version of what you just said? Why don't we rewind and try that again? And so I don't do that at work. But hey, if you've got that relationship with your colleagues, let me know how that works for you. But it requires these small, conscious, intentional acts to say, I'm going to choose kindness today. I'm going to think about my words and look for the way that's going to help people feel the positive intent that I have so that there's not that disconnect. Now, it's easier said than done. As I said, many of us don't naturally do this, so it comes from being aware of the impact of microaggressions, but also the impact of microinclusions. Have you ever had that moment that happens where someone has just said or done something so kind when you needed it most, and it just helped recover the whole day for you? I see some heads nodding. I think we've experienced this. I'm going to ask you for examples in a moment. But these microinclusions help build the same pattern of little things that over time build up into our organizational culture. This is how we interact at this workplace. This is how we treat one another here. This is a place where we are nice to each other, we're kind to each other, we show respect and civility. Let me ask you though, what is a thing that someone does in your workplace that makes you feel respected, makes you feel valued? Puts a smile on your face. Who can give me an example of one of these little things that just really helps you? Yeah. Microphone's coming up behind you.
Like when you're in a meeting and just someone pausing to say, does anyone have any additional perspectives, to give people an opportunity to share their voice. It's a nice thing.
Being invited into the conversation. Great. Over here.
I am a trainee with my supervisor, and anytime we do something, she'll actually call me her partner versus saying my subordinate.
My subordinate, yes. Sometimes just that word choice can make a big difference. Over in the corner over here. Go ahead while the microphone's coming to you. Go ahead, please.
Sorry. So I'm one of those really weird people that hate chocolate.
Okay.
I know. Thank you. Because there's very, very few of us.
Some people in the room are feeling that was a microaggression. Yeah.
I know I'm in the minority there, so I own it. But everyone in the company over the years has learned this, and not only my team in the office, but all the employees in all of our stores. When I come around and I try to bring them treats and different stuff, like they always have some sort of like gummy. I love Mike and Ike's. I love, gummy bears, stuff like that. They always have something like that for me because they know I don't like chocolate. Yeah. And so they spoil me with that.
You feel remembered and heard. I love that. Great. I think over here was next, though.
One over here. She's got one.
Okay, microphone's coming. I promise you're next. We're going to micro-include you in just a moment. Over here. Yes, please.
Okay. So like when you're in a meeting and people have spoken before you, you build on what they say, but you kind of call them, say, building on what Orlando said. And, it just gives them credit, and it kind of makes them feel better about it. And it actually pays it forward because the next person does it too, usually.
Yeah, it's a great call out. When we do this, when we demonstrate these subtle acts of respect and civility in the workplace, when we model it for others, it's more likely that others will follow suit and do something as well. Over here.
It can be in my office if someone gets coffee. They make sure they ask anyone, hey, do you need anything? Can I get you a cup of coffee? It's just something simple.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks. I'm going to give just a couple quick ones, and then I'm going to move us on. I'm so sorry. I also want you to think about dietary restrictions. So when you have people who say they are vegetarian, they're vegan, they are lactose intolerant, whatever, when you cater in meals, can you do something like that that's going to show you've heard them, you remembered that? I also want you to think about when we have people that demonstrate they're taking time off for their religious observations. How can you do something to say, I've heard you, I remember that, I'm going to celebrate with you, and so on. I know we have a couple more hands up. I'm going to say I do want to move us forward. I see someone's pointing frantically at something. We're going to move forward here because what I want to make sure you are thinking about is how we can address some of these scenarios and pivot from a microaggression to a microinclusion. So I am going to continue to ask for your help because I'm going to give you a couple of scenarios. In each of these, I'm going to set it up. I'm going to describe what's happening. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about the likely intent. How can we reframe this and assume positive intent? What are some alternative actions we could take that would would be more inclusive. So let's play with a few of these. Let's start with the flexibility penalty. So here is an example. There is a high-performing member of a team, and they have a hard stop every day because they have a family obligation. They've got to leave at 5:30 every day. And what happens? Well, the manager keeps scheduling meetings or activities with the team very late in the day. And when this employee has to go leave to take care of that obligation, will make comments like, it must be nice to have a hard stop, or it must be nice that you get to leave early, or something like that. And so what happens? Well, colleagues are hearing this, but they don't say anything because maybe they don't feel empowered or emboldened to speak up, especially when it's the boss doing it. So here's a couple questions. We're going to use this format for a few examples. The first of them is, what do you think the manager's likely intent was? If we were to assume positive intent. I see the groans. Maybe we're not feeling comfortable with assuming positive intent here. Give me your thoughts. Why do you think the manager is saying this? Go ahead and raise your hand. I see over here.
This is a stretch, but I'm trying to assume positive intent.
Microphone right behind you.
This is a stretch, but perhaps the manager is trying to acknowledge how flexible he is.
Right, I'm the cool boss. Not saying that you're not, but maybe that's what we were aiming for. Let's see, we've got a microphone coming up here, yeah.
Maybe the manager thinks he's trying to be funny.
Yeah, thinks he's trying to be funny, just trying to be lighthearted. Let me get one more, and then I've got a few more questions. Yes, this is Michael Scott, isn't it, from The Office? Go ahead.
So I'm gonna look at it from the opposite perspective, again for the purposes of discussion, and maybe he's trying to acknowledge everybody who did stay late.
Okay, maybe he's trying to acknowledge the people that did stay late, but going about it in a way that feels pointed. Perhaps not how he intended it, but that's how it lands. Well, what do you think the impact of that repeated experience might be on the team member that has to leave? How would you feel if you were that person? Over here, yes, please. Microphone is inbound.
I mean, I would feel so embarrassed. I would feel as if you're saying that I should I need to put work over my personal responsibility. I can't do that. And it makes me now begin to question, am I really needed here?
Yeah,
do I need to stay here?
Am I valued here? Is this a
Yeah.
place where I'm going to be allowed to succeed and thrive? Let me get one more. Yes, please.
So I've actually had a personal experience exactly like that one. And I was taking care of a friend's kid, and I had the obligation to go pick her up every day. And my manager at the time, no longer my manager, I left that company, but had said the exact same thing. And the impact that it had personally on myself was that I had to end up telling my friend, I can't do this anymore. My boss is making me feel guilty for having a hard stop and having to leave. So I've had like that exact experience. So it's not a great feeling.
I'm so
and
sorry
I ended
that
up
happened.
resigning.
I'm sorry that happened. Thank you for sharing that. That's a
Yeah.
good lesson learned for all of us. Thank
Yeah.
you. Well, let me pivot and say, well, what could the manager have done that would be more inclusive? What's an alternative version of this? I see a hand over here. Let's see, which mic gets to you first?
So the easiest solution is to schedule the meetings earlier in the day, and then that way, even if they do get delayed, it's still early enough in the day so that they can leave on time.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to always do it at the end of the day. Yeah, in front right here.
Adding on what she said, privately go to the individual and say, I understand you have a hard stop. My intention is not to make you feel bad, but due to our schedule, this meeting has to be scheduled at this time. I understand if you need to take it from the car. But having a one-on-one private conversation prior to scheduling could definitely ease the embarrassment, the guilt, all those other things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pull that thread and go one step farther. What about simply saying, I know you have to be in the car. Is there anything you want to give me that I can reference for you? Is there something you want me to put on the Zoom while you're driving? I'm here to help support you, and it's important that I hear you in the meeting. Yeah. One more. Yes, please.
Just adding on to that is that the root cause here is that it's scheduled late and that it ran long. So stick to your agenda and, okay, well, we schedule for the rest of the meeting at this time on this next day.
I feel personally attacked because I'm 2 minutes behind schedule right now, but okay. So yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And I also want to call out something that I just observed. Remember over here, he was saying when someone says something, you can reference that they said something. Notice you made that comment, and we've had 2 people immediately do exactly that. Building off of what she just said behind me, well, building off of that. Look at that. We're already modeling and creating new habits. That's amazing. I got a bonus question for you, though. If you were one of the colleagues on that call, what could you have done when you heard that? Let's think as a bystander. What might you have been able to do to help diffuse? In the back over there, yeah.
We could let her give her information first.
Yeah, so let her present first. If you heard the manager say that sort of snarky comment over here, what would you say if you were a bystander?
Basically, really appreciate the flexibility that you're giving her. Look forward to when that need comes up for me too. So thanks.
Yeah, there you go. Good, thank you for that. So turning that microaggression into a microinclusion, I love it. Let's look at a couple more examples here. I've got a few more to go. How about this one? Where are you really from? Oh, I see faces in the audience. You know exactly what the scenario is going to be. So here's the situation. You have 2 colleagues talking to each other. One of them says to another, where you're from, and she says, Chicago. And he says, no, but where are you originally from? Or where are you really from? And she says, no, I was born in Chicago. And he says, come on, you know what I mean. And she does. Because she gets this all the time. This sort of thing happens a lot. Give me a show of hands if you've ever experienced this. Because oh my goodness. So if you're watching on live, on streaming, about a third of the room just raised their hand. So you get this question, and it seems to be implying something. Well, let's go through the same series of questions. This time we'll put them all up because you're already on to my sequence. Assuming positive intent, that's maybe difficult. Assuming positive intent, what could have been the positive goal that person had? Over in the back here, yeah.
Maybe he just really wants to get to know this person really well.
Yeah, maybe he's just genuinely trying to get to know the person. Over here, what do you think? Microphone's coming.
Yeah, I get this a lot because I'm kind of racially ambiguous living in Orlando. And sometimes it's just a cultural thing because they want to know whether or not you can relate. Like I always get Boricua, Dominicana, whatever, and it's just like, no, not necessarily. I'm from California. I'm like Obama. And that usually diffuses it, but there's not a negative intent. They just want to know, hey, do we share cultures?
Yeah, so maybe positively intended, if not artfully worded. Well, what could that colleague have done to word it a little bit more artfully, to be a little bit more inclusive? How would you ask that question in a way that didn't make someone feel singled out? What do you think? Up in the front, we have a microphone coming your way. Hold that thought, a microphone is on its way, I promise. Yeah, they're running.
Oh, we're not running.
There's so much, not in this humidity, yeah.
So for me, by the way, my name is Angelica. So for me, I think being Hispanic, if I would want to know somebody, I think I would offer, I'm from Mexico, and kind of open that my message was to really get to know the person, and there was no harm. It was just simply getting to know them. So if I approach it like, oh, I'm from Mexico, and kind of open that warm conversation, I think the person will be more appreciative and relaxed, and more, we can share more about our culture.
Oh, thanks for that. So I'm modeling the kind of openness that I'm willing to have. I'm not demanding it from you, but I'm showing that I'm comfortable talking about this. Would you like to share anything about your life? Anybody else? Over here. Oh, right over here. Thanks.
Personally, I love accents. So when I hear somebody with a dialect, with an accent of something, I'll say, oh, that's really unique. That's beautiful. Where's that accent from? And just to start building a relationship that way.
Yeah, so you're demonstrating your positive intent. Over here, yes, please.
Going off of that first comment, I usually offer up, I say, well, I was born up in Rhode Island, but my family is originally from Colombia. And then I kind of ask them, were you always born in Chicago? Or like, were you from Chicago? Is your family from Chicago? And then just kind of see if the conversation flows from there. If not, don't press it either.
Don't press it either. Yes, no, but you know what I mean is the part that really derails this example. Like, all right, she was being very clear with you and you just couldn't let it go. That's where it turns into the microaggression, absolutely. And yeah, sometimes our stories are complicated. Listen, my name is Kevin England. I'm from the United States. I live in Italy. People are very confused. So all those nations in that story. But we can use these as opportunities to share the things about ourselves and to get to know one another. What would you do as a bystander if you were in the room and you heard that, where you're really from? I see a hand in the back. Microphone coming your way.
I'm just aggressive, so I often will just say, hey, rude, don't say that.
Okay. Round of applause. Right behind you, there's a microphone.
So I would use it as a teachable moment and explain why the perpetual foreigner myth is so harmful to individuals from other nationalities.
Yeah, I love that. So we'll do a little educational session. We will help people understand what they missed. Yeah? Good. Anybody else have a suggestion? Yeah, up in here. I swear this is targeted to make sure we have to get the microphones as far as possible. One more in the back and then up to you, and then we'll move on.
I think you can also tell them, like, I don't know what you mean. Like, it's like when someone tells a joke that's not funny or it's sexist, racist, and you're like, I don't get the joke. And then they have to explain themselves, and then they kind of feel like an idiot. So.
Yes, actually, I love that technique, and especially when people are saying inappropriate things in the workplace and they think they're being funny, I will use that. I'm so sorry, I haven't had my coffee this morning. Can you explain what you mean, because I'm not following? And usually they get about 5 seconds into explaining, and then you hear them trail off, and they're like, no, we're good, it's fine. Okay, one more right up front.
Can you put your hand? Oh, sorry. Well, often when it gets to the where you really from, I just say, well, what an odd thing to say, and kind of turn the awkwardness back on them in a non-aggressive way, but also, like, it's an odd thing to ask, especially when you're just introducing yourself to someone, giving their name, exchanging pleasantries. What do you do? How are you today? Opposed to going right into that and then what do you really mean? I just go take a long pause,
right?
So they can feel the moment that even if they don't understand it, this is an awkward thing to say to someone.
Yeah, I like that. Gives them that silence and let them sit in that for a second and reconsider. They'll remember that next time. Good. So let me give you two more. Here's one about assuming someone's availability. So here's a scenario in which a manager has a last-minute need. They need to send somebody on an immediate assignment. Without asking who's available, the manager goes to the one man on the team and says, I'm going to have you do this. The reasoning, he's thinking that the women on the team have family obligations because, of course, men never have family obligations, right? And so he is just jumping in and making that decision. Show of hands, how many of you like it when your boss decides what you want or are capable of doing? Yeah, I would like to make those decisions for myself, please and thank you. So yeah, that's an effort where someone's trying to be considerate, but unfortunately, when others find out that these decisions are being made on their behalf, they tend to get a little grumpy about it because you are deciding for me, I can make those decisions for myself. Let me ask, what do you think the impact might be on the colleagues who were overlooked and not given that opportunity? What's the potential impact if you are not invited to do these things over and over again? Yep, I see a hand over here. Oh, right here. Yeah.
I think the intent was...
Say that again?
I think the intent was I'm trying to be intentional of not interrupting the family lives of these individuals who may be women taking care of their families. However, now you've taken away a potential networking opportunity from me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if your boss decided you couldn't come to SHRM 26 because you needed to stay home and be with your family, I think that'd be a little intrusive. I see another hand right here.
So the impact is going to be less experiences, stunted career development, and the potential of a loss of opportunities in the future because of those lack of experiences. So you might lose out on a promotion because you didn't have these experiences to lead up to that opportunity, to prepare you for that promotion.
You're missing out on what could be very valuable experience, absolutely. Well, what could the manager do to be more inclusive? I'm going to give you this one. Maybe just ask. Maybe ask the team members who is available to do this, who would be able to travel in the last minute, who wants to do this, and we can build from there. I've got one more for you here to think about, and this is about accessibility. Oh, I lied, I have two more. This is about accessibility. So we're planning a team offsite. We're going to go do an activity, and someone on the team has booked the venue. They're starting to pick the things that we're going to do. There's going to be some great team building. It's going to be fun, right? Except that no one checked to see if the venue or the activities were accessible to people who have disabilities and maybe aren't able to be as mobile as some of their colleagues. So when a person with a physical disability brings this up and says, am I going to be able to get there? Am I going to be able to participate? The people who are planning it say, yeah, we'll figure that out when we get there, don't worry. And what happens? They did not figure that out. Of course, it's an afterthought for someone that isn't being conscious of it. So the team member shows up to this event and they are not able to participate in some of the activities, and they just get to watch as their colleagues do the thing that nobody was mindful about their abilities for. So let's assume the intent was positive, and for the sake of argument, let's assume that they planned to do something about it and then forgot it. It just wasn't top of mind. What might the impact have been on that employee that missed out? How would you feel if you were in that moment? We have a microphone coming up to you.
I was the employee. This just happened to me in March. I had rotator cuff surgery, and we had our whole team come from around the globe, and they did a team building event at a place that does bowling and axe throwing. And I said, we could do an escape room, something where our minds are engaged. I gave all these other options, and my boss was like, yeah, but I think we're going to be sitting all day. People are going to want to be active. By the way, this meeting was a week after my surgery. So I got to watch everybody bowl and throw axes.
Wow.
And I mentally was throwing a few myself.
I was thinking that. I was going to say it, but I thought I don't know you like that, and let me not attribute violent intent. But yes, that's awful. I mean, how top of mind for you and how blind for that person, absolutely. Any other thoughts? What might the impact have been? Yeah, coming up to you with the microphone.
Thank you.
They're ready over here.
I've had my hand up a couple times, and so that's why they were all like.
I have lights right behind you, so
it is
blinding
okay.
me. I'm so sorry. Thank
no
you. This
worries,
is my
you're
microaggression.
No.
My impact did not match the intent.
The accessibility afterthought and with this was I went to an orientation at my company, and there were 3 people. It was like 75 people. Were all standing in the back several different times, and I noticed they were all larger people, and it's because all of our seats had the handrails. And so I brought it up after the fact, or I brought it up on a break, and they were like, oh, well, like, they haven't said anything. And I was like, yes, but I was also a little bit larger prior to that, and I was like, it's very uncomfortable for people. And they did the same thing where it's an afterthought. It wasn't really a big deal. And now there are a handful of slightly larger chairs without handrails. But I was like, this, if somebody has an oxygen tank, if somebody has these kinds of things, you're not considering that. And it was an HR orientation. So it was really difficult to just kind of get people to understand that. So whether the intent is well or not, you want everybody to be comfortable and have armrest, but it's not for everybody. So you need to have options.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm sorry that happened. But also, I have to give you a quick shout out. Thank you for bringing up the experience that you had in the room just now, but doing it in a way that the person receiving the feedback was able to take it constructively. And that's a great modeling. Yeah. It's like the New York City subway. If you see something, say something. But, we're going to make sure that people can learn from the experience without feeling on blast. So thank you for that example. I've got one more for you here. The casual misgender. And so I hear the groans. People have experienced this in the workplace. I see this is a difficult situation for a number of employees and our organizations, right? So someone has transitioned and they are using she, her pronouns in the workplace. They are clear about this. They have said so repeatedly. Most of the colleagues on the team have adjusted, and it is an adjustment. Let's acknowledge that up front. And sometimes you've referred to someone by a name or a gender for years, decades even. It takes some time to unlearn and build new habits. Most Most of the teammates are able to do so, except one teammate who just seems to not be capable or willing to learn new habits when referring to this team member. Over and over again, in front of teammates, in front of colleagues, in front of clients, in writing, in emails, this employee is misgendering his colleague, and she's repeatedly corrected him, and it keeps happening. So others have noticed this, but this is a complex situation, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with how do I discuss this in the workplace, so nobody on the team is saying anything. What do you think the colleague's likely intent is? Let's again assume positivity. What's the best case scenario? I see so many heads shaking no. Try. What's the best case scenario? What might be going on for this person? I see a microphone coming right over to you.
So this actually happened at my job because it was a person that was with us for 20 years and transitioned like year 15. Okay. And the intent was for the colleague that just, well, it was two colleagues that just couldn't do it, was they were holding on to the memory of the person that was before, and it was like they were close and they just couldn't change. It was really hard for them.
Right, so assuming positive intent, they meant well, they weren't trying to be harmful, they just were not able to get past literally 15 years of shared experiences. Thank you for sharing that. One more, yeah. Did I see your hand up?
My answer was basically the same. Like, okay. It's habit, you're used to saying it that way, and when you're just speaking quickly, it comes out that way.
Yeah, well, what do you think the impact is on that employee who's being misgendered? How would you feel if somebody was consistently calling you the wrong name, using the wrong pronouns for you? Anybody want to share? How might that affect you? Over here. Microphone's coming your way.
I would feel like I'm not a person anymore.
Yeah, I would feel like I'm not a person anymore. Thank you for sharing that. Any other thoughts? We have up front here.
So I have a couple of friends from school that have transitioned, and they've actually told me a couple different stories, but overall, yeah, they don't feel seen by their coworkers. They feel like they don't exist anymore. And to hear that coming from really close friends of mine was really hard for me, I think. But it's just not something that should be taken lightly, especially in the workplace, but also just in general as well. And that's why we, celebrate people. It doesn't matter, where they're from or how they identify. We're all people, and I think that we should all be respected.
Yeah, we will respect and celebrate people, not just in spite of who they are, but because of who they are. Yeah,
exactly.
Thank you. I've got one more hand in the back.
To piggyback off of what she was saying, I think it's if you're so used to seeing a person in a certain way and then you have to kind of accept who they've become, there's a grieving process for the people that are used to you. Mm-hmm. So I think even the person who is no longer, what they were before, leave it open enough to, to allow people to grieve, because they're in that process. They are grieving that friendship. They're grieving this person that they've known for so long, to now no longer see this person in that light and to have to cut it off. It's a grieving process.
So it could be a very jarring experience to have to think of and speak of somebody differently than what you're used to. Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that. Well, what would you do if you were a teammate and you were observing this? If you were stepping in as a bystander, how might you help contribute to civility in this scenario?
So I always like to be a little bit more on the positive, optimistic side, and I would kind of play into whatever ego they might have and say, I know you're interested in sales, and it sounds like you're really focused on that, but I would pull them aside and tell them, like, are you doing this because you're afraid of what the clients are going to say or how they're going to react? Why don't you think about how you're making this person feel, right? We have to think about the person. And every time that I see you say that, or you don't acknowledge them how they're asking you to, it makes me feel like you don't care about anyone, right? So that's my perspective. What about their perspective?
Yeah, I like that, and sharing with them. I'm assuming your intent is positive here, but here's how that might have landed. One more up here.
So this is a true story. I had a coworker, and she was the way she dressed and the way she looked was very masculine. And she acknowledged that she owned it. And when we would go like to dinners as a team, the waiter would come over and, "Sir, can I take your order?" And she was understanding. She knew the persona that she portrayed, but there'd been times where I had gotten up and quietly on the side and said, "Hey, just so you know, that's a ma'am, not a sir," and just to give her that. But
yeah, that's that calling in we were talking about. How can you quietly give the nudge to help educate and redirect without making it a bigger deal, a public correction? Yeah.
I know you said no more, but I do have one thing I want to add, and that's all of us here. Number one thing we respond to is our name.
Yep.
And if you hear your name, people remember the name, you're seen, right? Because it's number one. So you have to think of it in that way too. That person made a decision that's so deeply personal, like your name. It's just a perspective to look at it in a simple way.
I like that. Thank you for sharing. I'll tell you, this comes up. I work with a lot of organizations that are struggling with how to be respectful and inclusive of individuals who have transitioned in the workplace. And one of the biggest things that I suggest is when you are having those corrective conversations, how can you do so in a way that is supportive and encouraging of the person who is struggling to be respectful, to demonstrate the respect they feel? And I usually approach it like, hey, I understand. It took me some time also to learn new habits, talking about this colleague. I know you can do this. I know you can. It just takes some little bit of practice. Sometimes just pausing for a moment and rehearsing in your head before you say what you're going to say is a great way to make sure that your impact matches your intent. I do actually want to build off of something that one of our colleagues in the room said. Think about the experience of an employee who has transitioned at work and their organization has tried to be inclusive. Their organization has gender reassignment surgery. They are spending money investing in this employee's healthcare in order to help them transition and bring their authentic self to work. And then the employee, because of the experience with coworkers, leaves. That company's invested a lot of money to try to be a great place to work for that employee, and the employee still leaves because of these little things. This is why it's important for us to make sure that we get the little things right. There's just a little plug for you. Incidentally, when I was first building this, I thought about trying to use a they-them example, and then I thought, I'm going to stumble over that myself trying to give the example. And I do this for a living, and even I sometimes have to practice and rehearse. How am I going to phrase this sentence to make sure I'm demonstrating respect? So just wanted to give the call out that if this topic in particular is a struggle for people who want to learn and do better, you're in good company. As long as you're continuing to make the effort to learn and grow, I think most of our colleagues will appreciate that. Well, here's what I want to do. I'm going to shift us to one last portion. We mentioned at the beginning of our time together that there are some handouts that you can download in the SHRM Events app. One of them is just the slides, of course, but there's also a tool. It's a document. It's called the Micro-Inclusion Commitment. It's just something I've put together for you to be able to think about and reflect. What can you do differently? And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk you through the different sections of it, and I'm going to ask for a couple of quick examples of what comes to mind for you. So section 1 of this tool is called your personal commitment. These are the things that you as an individual can do just in the way you show up for your teammates every day. And so think about things like one micro-inclusion behavior, one little thing that you will start practicing as soon as you start back to work next week. You might also think about a pattern that you notice yourself doing, like me getting excited and interrupting people. Find that pattern. What will I do to interrupt that pattern? What is a new habit I want to build over the next 30 days? And what is one person that I specifically want to make sure I'm showing up differently for because I realize maybe I wasn't being the inclusive teammate? Let me ask, can anybody give me one? I'm only going to take one. Give me one example. What is one thing you can do? Right in the middle here. A microphone is coming your way.
Ultimately, when somebody is talking, just leave a little bit of a longer pause after you think they're done to keep yourself from interrupting them.
I'm doing that right now, so yes. Good. And listen, especially for those of us that work a lot on Zoom, on Teams and so on, that little half-second delay is a killer for people like me that are excited to speak. I have to make myself count backwards from 3 to be sure. It's time. I'm ready to jump in. Good. That's an example. My call out to you, my challenge to you is when you download this document, think about what is one of these commitments that you can make. I also have a section about cultural commitments, and this is more when we think about the way we all interact together. How can I demonstrate inclusive behaviors in a way that people will model, like our building off of what someone else said? I love that. We did it in the room. How do we do more of that? What's one behavior you can try to help start a trend for? What's a conversation you want to initiate with your colleagues about how we all can show up differently when we come back to work? What is a norm, an expectation that you can propose, like at the beginning of our meetings? Let's take a moment to recognize teammates. That's a whole different workshop on recognition in the workplace. But what is it that you can do to model behaviors? Maybe is there a teammate that you think could use a little bit of help? Maybe you can model for them what you think they should be doing so you can kind of nudge. Can anybody give me an example? How will you influence your team members when you get back home? Anybody have one action they want to try when they get back home to change the behaviors on your teams? Over here, microphone's coming to you. Thanks.
Just modeling with the team affirmations when people make statements or contributions to the conversation, affirming what they've said, making sure that they feel included and that they were heard.
I love that. I heard what you said. I'm thinking about that. Thank you for sharing that. So A, B, and C. Let me give some thought to that. Good. We got a bonus one. One more. Okay. Microphone's coming your way.
We spoke a lot about the verbal affirmations and cues, but how about the nonverbal, like you have been doing this entire session? Looking with eye contact, maintaining it, and then doing nonverbal cues of acknowledging that you're hearing what is being said.
Oh, well, thank you for the positive reinforcement there. I try, except for when I have lights blinding me. I'm so sorry. Yes, it's a good example. I'm going to give you a little trick. When I'm doing Zoom sessions, I know actually a few of you have been in some of the specialty credentials that I've taught on Zoom for SHRM. Let me know if you've ever caught me doing this. Have you noticed I seem to be making eye contact even on Zoom? Do you know why? It's because I'm staring creepily into the camera lens when I'm presenting. So I'm not even seeing my slides. I'm just staring at that little black circle on the top of my laptop. That's how I make eye contact or fake eye contact. Those little things demonstrate that I'm paying attention to you. Well, I've got one last section I want you to think about, and that's how do you make sure you actually do this? I'm going to ask for some tough self-honesty here. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a learning session and you said, oh, I'm going to do A, B, and C, and then done nothing from that list. Yeah, look at all these hands coming up. In the moment, it makes sense. I'm going to do that. What will you do to hold yourself accountable for change? So who is a person that you can have as your accountability buddy? Think about somebody you're going to go back to and say, I am trying to do this thing. Can you please reinforce to me if you see me doing it? So that's giving me my kudos, so I do more of it. And if you catch me missing an opportunity, can you quietly nudge me that I need to do more of this so I learn from that experience? Give yourself a target date for when you're going to circle back to this tool that I just introduced and check in on yourself. Did I do the things that I said in my self-reflection? Ask yourself, how will I know I am making a difference by doing these things? What are the signs that my efforts are paying off and are helping to make my teammates feel more welcomed and valued and respected and heard? Can anybody give me one accountability check they're going to do for themselves? How will you make sure you follow through? Microphone is coming up to you right now. Thank you.
I got you.
We got dueling microphones. This is great.
I like to set recurring calendar invites, so every 2 weeks for the next 6 months to set a reminder.
Amazing. So calendar appointments to remind you, maybe block off time and say, I'm going to go review my tool. I'm going to think about what I can do differently. Yeah, good. Any other examples? How will you hold yourself accountable? Who can be your accountability buddy? Anybody have somebody in mind back home? Is it your boss? Is it your teammate or colleague? Is it your direct reports? I'm trying to be a more inclusive manager for all my teams. Team members, I need you to tell me when you see me doing this. I need you to tell me when you see me missing the opportunity. These are some things for you to consider. Again, all of these questions, these self-reflection questions, are there for you in the tool. I encourage you to download it. Spend some time thinking about it. It sounds like a great plane exercise for those of you who are traveling home. So think about how can you show up differently? How can you be the best version of yourself for your colleagues? With that, and with 1 minute to spare, I'm going to say thank you so very much for joining. That was macro-inclusive. Thank you for that. And so I am the schmoozy sort. I love to stay connected with people. That QR code is actually my LinkedIn page. Send me a connect request. Don't stalk me. Don't follow. No, send me a connect request. That way we can talk. We can exchange messages. I'd love to stay in touch. I'm going to stick around here in case you have anything else that you want to chat about. But please do go into the SHRM Events app and leave your feedback so that the organizers know what you thought about this session. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Kevin.